You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group, and co-hosts, Uncle Mike TOSAW from St. Charles Wealth Management, along with Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian and Andrew the Rock Lobster GIOVINAZZI from OptionPit.com. And now, get ready to hit the Option Block.
All right, everybody. That music means we are back. It is Monday. It is noon Central. It is 1 p.m. Eastern. You know what's popping off in these crazy markets to commence our trading and indeed our content week on the network? Let's find out together, shall we? It is time for the Option Block, what the cool kids call the old OB. My name, of course, Mark Longo from the THE. Don't forget the optionsinsider.com, the place to go for all sorts of cool content. Of course, links to all of our shows, most actives. A lot of you folks love a little bit of the old most actives action out there. Get those twice a day, midday and end of day, because we like you. And of course, all that great earnings volatility data we give you pretty much all the time throughout earnings season, just because we like you folks. All that stuff available there for free. It's pretty cool. So head on over there, check it out, your show of choice, maybe some great data coming at you there as well. Then, of course, if you want to go above and beyond, maybe you want to check out some great pro Q&As. We had an awesome double, dare I say it, a contentious, perhaps even a debate pro Q&A last week, which was pretty awesome, between Dr. Vix and, of course, Miss Carly Garner, taking on all comers on things like nat gas and volatility and what the hell is a ladder and all that kind of crazy stuff. Check that out over there on the pro, as well as Options Oddities, as well as you got my chat with the folks over there at SIBO from the FIA conference last week. All that stuff coming at you over there. Our panel I did earlier this year, all sorts of exclusives make their way up to the pro content there, as well as awesome giveaways. We're coming up on it. Get your name in the hat pretty soon, listeners, if you want to be part of the drawing for the March Pro Trading Crate. We've got some stuff here to give away. You might as well be the one to get it. The optionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go, as we are joined now for the start of our broadcast week by the uncleest of Mikes, Mr. Uncle Mike TOSAW, as well as by the rockingest of lobsters, Mr. Andrew GIOVINAZZI. Not from the shores of Maine this week, but from parts unknown, which is exciting, as it is time to kick off our 80s trivia segment. Here we go. All right, everybody. This week's question, once again, coming to you courtesy of our super producer extraordinaire. She is drunk, nigh, mad with power, listeners. Loving coming up with these questions to put the Rock Lobster and the uncleest of Mikes through their paces. This week's question, because we are going to be off for the OB next Monday, I will be traveling. So no option block next Monday, which means we are on the road to WrestleMania. WrestleMania coming up. We will have had it by the time we gather here together for the next Monday episode. of the option block, listeners, which means it's time for a wrestling themed. We changed it. It's not an 80s wrestling trivia segment anymore, but doesn't mean we can't throw a fun 80s wrestling question in there, which is back in the 80s. Oh, let me first get my chat up here so I could see who's going to be going for the buzz. All right, here we go. All right, back in the 80s. Everyone knows The Rock. The Rock is headlining this year once again at WrestleMania. Everything old is new again. But back in the 80s, The Rock's dad was a wrestler. He was actually part of a tag team that won the titles in 1983. So the question for the week from our super producer extraordinaire: who was The Rock's partner, and what was the name of their tag team? A twofer! A challenging one this week. She's coming for you. No prisoners. Mr. Rock Lobster, don't worry. We got a special part of the question for you too, because this is the hard one. So I guess
no idea.
We'll go to Uncle Mike. We'll go to Uncle Mike is buzzing. Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, have at it. The floor is yours.
His partner is Tony Atlas. Am I correct on that?
You are correct. Yes, that's definitely a half point. Let's see if you can get all of it.
And I'm trying to remember the name of it. The name of the tag team itself is escaping me. I do not know the name of the tag team.
Did pretty good with Tony Atlas. That's a pretty good one. The other half would come with Soul Patrol. That was the name of the tag team.
I would not have gotten that.
That's a hard one. She's not messing around with you folks this week.
No.
So there you go. Half point for Uncle Mike. But you know what, Mr. Rock Lobster, the super producer, never let it be said she is not beneficent either. She has a kind of bonus question for you that you might be able to get, which is, of course, beyond the world of 80s wrestling. Rock's dad was also, there was a big TV show he just did, which was pretty much all about his dad. So you could have had a chance to at least be familiar with the name of the Rock's dad. Give you a hint. It's kind of somewhere in his nickname. It may have inspired Dwayne The Rock Johnson's nickname. I'll give you a hint. What was The Rock's dad's name, Mr. Rock Lobster?
Dwayne Johnson?
That's what Dwayne's name is. What's his dad's name? His dad's last name is Johnson. You are correct.
I don't know. Bill Johnson?
He goes by The Rock because his dad was Rocky Johnson.
Oh.
Tried. She tried. She tried to give you a chance. She tried to open the door for the Rock Lobster to sneak through, but alas, no. But Mr. TOSAW extending his lead here with half a point, a good pull for Tony Atlas as we keep on rolling right on into the trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the trading block.
All right, listeners, let's get to a little bit of the old trading block. And, we're kicking off the week slightly in the red. Bulls need not be concerned. We're not exactly bleeding red out there on the street today. S&P off about 0.25%. NASDAQ off about 0.16% to be precise. And the now newly minted Dow with Amazon in there off about 0.4% on the day, listeners. So not a lot going on. Before we get there, let's go here quickly. Our friends, though, out in small caps, deciding to buck the trends once again and decide to go up about 0.6 of a point. So there we go. 0.6%, I should say. So there we go, listeners. All sorts of fun being had in the market out there today. All that a long way around to saying vol not exactly sizably different from where it was on the Thursday show. VVIX, or I should say VIX, at a 13.10, up about 0.2 of a point. VVIX going the other way, 77, down 2 points. Remember we said we're starting to get into that territory where VVIX starts to look kind of cheap. That's probably why the Rock Lobster and I were buying all those VIX puts on Options Oddities on Friday. You listeners twisted our arm into doing it. It's all your fault at the end of the day out there, listeners. But intriguing stuff out there. VXX at a 13 even, down about 0.25 of a point. UVXY 630, down about 0.1 of a point. SVIX 4240, so hanging out pretty much right around its all-time highs, up about 0.4 of a point. And UVIX at about 8.75, down about 0.25 of a point out there right now. All right, Mr. Uncle Mike, you got about half a point, so that's enough to get pride of place on the show this week. If you have any enduring memories of Dwayne The Rock's dad, a.k.a. the father of the guy who will once again be headlining WrestleMania in a couple of weeks. Have at it. And then B, what's catching your eye out there in the markets today? Kind of a sleepy start to the week.
Yeah, I mean, with Rocky Johnson, he had a good run in the early 80s, but I never knew a lot of this, so I watched the show Young Rock. I know a little bit of it, but not a lot of it, in that it sounded like he tried to double-cross Vince McMahon, and that really stopped him from Vince ever trusting him, and it kind of messed with his career. So I guess you learn lessons in terms of where you're going with things, but he definitely had a good run in the early 80s. He was a big star, and they did bring him back. I remember early in the Rock's career, back when he was known as Rocky Maivia, he was at WrestleMania helping out his son at one of the situations I remember at one of the late 90s WrestleManias. But it's too bad, because I think he could have been a really good wrestler if he would have gotten a little bit of push in the later 80s, just because of all the great wrestlers that were out there and just the heyday with which it was. But if you take off Vince McMahon and you are a professional wrestler, it's the odds get stacked against you relatively quickly in that business, at least at that time. In terms of the markets, it looks like it just the S&P is not getting out of bed yet, if that makes any sense. It's kind of a dreary day here, overcast. This is a classic mud season day weather-wise here in the Midwest. It's dreary, and it's like on the 40s and 50s. So it seems like that kind of matches the theme and feel for this market right now, at least for today, with the S&P down just under 10 points on the day, and not a lot of movement in other spots. The only movers that I'm seeing lighting up my tape right now, we are getting a little bit of movement in NVIDIA. NVIDIA is only up 1.2% on the day, and that's actually kind of a big deal for NVIDIA, or kind of a lack of movement for NVIDIA. We are getting a little bit of movement on Disney today. That's up over 2% on the day. Looked like it might make a run at 120 a little bit earlier, but it's back in the mid 118s at this stage. And then, of course, we have Apple. It almost feels like Apple is creating this 170 to 180 channel right now. And just the thought of Apple being a channeling stock, it just seems rather odd for this marketplace with where it's going, with what it's doing. And there's really not a lot happening so far today. But on one bit of exciting news is that the small caps are up 0.6% on the day. Looking at IWM, the Russell. So the Russell, like we say on the show, it just doesn't care. We do what we want to do here in the small cap land. So that's what I'm seeing today.
Small caps don't care what you want. They're doing their own thing out there. You know who does care, though, is Mama Lobster. She's pretty touchy when it comes to the subject of her poor pudding and how he is treated on the network. So, Mr. Lobster, I hear rumor that I have come under the ire of Mama Lobster once again. What did I do now to run afoul of Mama Lobster and her poor pudding?
Yes, I believe last week when TOSAW and I were engaged in some conversation, you were calling us scumbags or something like that, and I don't remember it, but the Mama Lobster, she was for sure that was said. And she's like, I just do not approve of Mark calling you and Uncle Mike that's not a nice name. So she wasn't happy.
Mama Lobster up in arms.
Uncle Mike as well.
You're going to get Mama TOSAW after you on that one. I'm telling my mama too. I didn't know you called us that.
The best is none of us remember it, but Mama Lobster clearly remembers it.
Exactly. I think
you had two mamas coming after you, Mark Longo.
I think it might have been scum on a trade or something. So I got to go listen to the tape now. But all I know is she's clearly listening to every word said closely.
Mama Lobster coming just when I thought I had her converted to my side. She was part of the fandom. Now she's back because I dared to besmirch her beloved pudding on the network.
Yep, I think it was the pudding besmudging really that did it. That's where we find ourselves. As far as the market goes, we kind of made those highs and sort of backed off. And there might have been some hope that there was going to be a budget deal that wasn't an absolute spending free-for-all. But guess what? Our congressional leaders are still blissfully unaware that they spend more money than they take in. So I don't know why anybody would think that would change. But as of right now, there isn't a lot of meat on the bone for news coming out. I would guess, the MU was up $10 today, so there's still the semi news. Apparently, semiconductors are trading like all growth stocks, and then I saw some stuff on FinTwit this week that there will only be one corporation in control of everything, and apparently that's going to be NVIDIA. Like nobody else will be able to come up with some kind of chip, but that is so that kind of drove things. But for now, you got kind of some small caps are rallying and some oil stocks are rallying, but a lot of the big tech that brought us here kind of is not. And that's what I'm seeing.
It is kind of funny that NVIDIA, just a few years ago, just pretty much a lowly graphics card and peripherals manufacturer, is now it. It is the one stock you need to pay attention to. All other stocks be damned. I don't know, is that too harsh language for Mama Lobster? I'll tone it down for Mama Lobster.
As long as you didn't say that I'm going to be damned, I think you're okay.
It's all about the pudding at the end of the day. All right,
yes, I believe so.
As a good Italian mother should do, first and foremost, all about her baby boy. There we go. I will do my darndest to earn her favor again throughout the rest of the show as we keep on going. Unfortunately, hopefully she's not tuning in for a lot of hot options volume today, because Mama Lobster might be disappointed, as might the rest of you. Not a lot lighting up the tape out there today, listeners. Spoiler alert. Let's start in VIX land. VIX struggling, barely managing to get to 250,000 contracts today, listeners, at 247 right now as we're kicking off this part of the show. The ADV hanging out at about 706 out there today. The big dog out there, such as it is today, 30,000 of the May 30s, 3 O's. That's interesting. Let's see what those are going up for. Those are going up for 36 cents. I think it was part of a spread. So yeah, May 30s for 36 cents. If I can get the full thing. There we go. Looks like maybe a roll from the April 15s. The April 15's going up 15,000 times. That could be closing, though. Looks like it doesn't look like it's opening. So we shall see more insight into that on Vol Views on Friday. Either way, it's just another 1x2. April 15, May 30. Kind of weird that it's a time one, but c'est la vie. That's the kind of light action we're getting out there in VIXland today. SPY, depressingly light. SPY, I can't remember the last time it was really that much lower than 4.3 million. Certainly not lower than 4 million out there today. 3.37 million contracts on the tape. That's fully 1 million contracts lower than we have come to expect SPY to be during this portion of the show right now. So pretty light action out there today, listeners. The ADV, 8.35 million. Usually you could say with a fair degree of confidence that SPY is going to hit its number. Today, it's got 5 million more contracts to go. I don't know if it's going to claw its way out of that hole, listeners. So we shall see out there today. And then next up, our old friend Small Caps, aka IWM, 524,000 contracts on the tape today for Small Caps. The ADV 1.12 million. So they're close to halfway. They might be able to make it. Small caps, you undersell them at your peril, but I don't know. It doesn't seem like a lot of paper out there as well. Even our old friend, the Qs. The Qs usually this time of day can be counted on for about 2.2 million contracts, almost like clockwork. They're also underperforming 1.9 million contracts on the tape. The ADV, 3.8 million out there today. So they're pretty much exactly halfway there. Will they get the rest of the way? I don't know. It seems kind of light unless something really pops off. And again, we've seen crazy things happen out there in the second half, even in the final few minutes of the day out there. So you ride it off at your peril out there today as well, listeners. But right now, as we're recording the show, a whole heck of a lot of nothing on the tape out there today. Let's see if that's the case out there in single name land. And the answer is, unfortunately, yes. It's kind of a snooze fest out there today, listeners. Number 10 cost you 182,000 contracts to break into the top 10. That's lighter than we've seen it in quite some time. That's roughly half of what it was just a few weeks ago when it cost you 360 to break into the top 10. At the height of earnings season, when things are popping off, exploding left, right, and central. Today, not so much, 182,000. That gets us to our old friend Palantir. They're up about 1.5% today, about 40 cents, trading right around 24.5 right now. Again, good for number 10, 182,000 contracts. Number 9, 211,000 contracts off to the land of crypto, in particular, Mara. Mara popping today, up about 87 cents, or about a little over 4%, trading 21.75. This name, if you've been following us on the crypto rundown, you know this thing's been all over the place. Up to 30, down to 15, up to maybe 30 again. We'll see. Is it on that trajectory? Got down to almost 15 again. Just a crazy, crazy time out here. Also, a lot of paper out there. This thing threatening VIX in terms of ADV these days. It's just popping off. Are you trading Mara or all the other associated names, your Riots and your Coinbase? Spoiler alert. May hear about that other one in a few minutes. But yeah, it's all crypto apparently today, with Mara taking the number 9 spot, 2170, up about 82 cents. On the day. Number 8, I said we're going to hear about him. We're going to hear about him right now. Don't have to wait too long. It's Coinbase. Number 8, 212,000 contracts. 280.75, up 25.25, nearly 10%. So popping hard. It's like JP Morgan giving them a little bit of the rub out there, the old analyst rub. Either way, more buyers than sellers for Coinbase out there today, listeners. Number 8, 212,000 contracts on the tape. Number 7, my old stomping grounds, Intel. 220,000 contracts out there. Intel popping hard last week off the news of this whole infrastructure bill, giving them roughly $8 billion, I think it was, to promote domestic chip manufacturing. So Intel said, thank you very much for that, and having a nice run off that. Giving up some of that ghost out there today, trading about $42 even right now, off about $1. So giving up some of those lofty highs. Looks like over the last year got up to about 51.25. Let's see if we can see exactly when that high came. Listen, it looks like it came right around Thursday, January 25th, because then it fell off a cliff there with terrible sales, off 12% the day after. So it looks like they, even with this spending plan, they have not been able to revisit those highs they set at least back in January. All right, number 6. We were just joking about them earlier. The newest member of the Dow. When you think Dow, you of course think Amazon. Number 6, 260,000 contracts, trading $1.80 even today, or up about $1.20 out there. Good for 260,000 contracts on the tape. And the number 6 spot, number 5, going out to another friend getting some love out there these days. Everything old is new again in the chip space. It's Micron. Good old MU, up about 8.75, nearly 8%, trading almost 119 out there today. So a nice little pop out there for Micron. Another one that's been just feeling some of the largesse out there of late. Everyone's looking for the next NVIDIA, the next name to challenge for the AI chip throne. Is Micron it? Who knows? But it was trading $91 last Thursday. Today it's about 119. So having a nice little pop out there. Good for 572,000 contracts. Number 4, I guess all it takes, listeners, to rekindle some options love for Apple is a little DOJ investigation. Back down, as Uncle Mike was alluded to earlier, kind of channeling these days, maybe bouncing between 170 and 180. On the lower end of that range today, 171.40, off about 90 cents or about 0.5%. Of course, these lingering government investigations are never great out there. They tend to linger for years, and it takes a while to get all the I's dotted and T's crossed on these things. Intriguing stuff. Either way, Apple back at number 4, 653,000. We were just saying, has the worm turned on Apple, pun intended? Is it out of the top 10, at least the top half of the top 10, given that it's not an AI player? Then they pivot into AI, and now this investigation, call it what you will out there. Either way, all of that conspiring drive a little bit of flow out there. Number 3, keeping it in A, tech names. It's AMD, 678 on the tape. 180 and a quarter, up about 60 cents today. Good for the number 3 spot. Number 2, what will it be? Will it be the tip of the spear, the one that the Rock Lobster says is the only stock you need to know about anymore? Or will it be perhaps the maker of EVs that has dominated our tape out there of late, listeners? Well, spoiler alert, it's the first one. It's NVIDIA. 1.06 million. NVIDIA, 957 and 2/3, up about 14 and 3/4, or about 1.5% out there today. So again, threatening that 1,000 level out there, listeners. Crazy cakes, but that's where we are out there. And the number 1 big dog out there today, Tesla, 1.09 million. So even on a pretty meager day, all things considered, Tesla and NVIDIA can both manage to scrape together over 1 million contracts on the day. Tesla, 172 and about 1/3, trading $1.50. You know, that might make for a fun poll. Super producer, take note. Apple and Tesla, at least for right now, trading around the same level. Which one, gun to your head, would you rather buy? It might be kind of fun. We have another poll. This went live earlier today, but maybe we'll add another one in. Maybe if we save it for next week, who knows where they'll both be trading. One will be 130, one will be 200. So sometimes you can't sit on these things. Either way, Tesla, 1.09 million and the number 1 spot out there. If you're waiting for a little bit of earnings, you know, there still is some to sink your teeth into. Monday backed. Remember them? I don't know if they even remember themselves out there these days. And that was some of their cohorts down at the FIA conference last week. They were, of course, the pivot from ICE kind of spinning off into the digital side. They were coming with the physically settled contracts. It was going to be all the rage. Kind of came and unfortunately went. Not sure what they're really up to over there these days. Maybe we'll find out with their earnings today. But tomorrow, GameStop. You may have heard of them out there once or twice over the past few years. Wednesday, Carnival. Heard about them a few times as well as Land's End. Thursday, one of my favorites out there, the Walgreens Boots Alliance. Luckily for you, because we like you folks, we got some updated earnings move results and earnings season reports. Walgreens Boots Alliance popping off on the 28th. They were trading about $20.50 when we ran this report. They were pricing in $1.51. The past they moved to $1.20. So that's a fair amount of extra juice for the Alliance. What is underwriting that? What is driving that juice, listeners? Might be worth a little bit of an investigation on your part. If you want to investigate how the season is hanging out right now, it's hanging out at a whopping 127%. Yes, that's with 867 names reporting. That's a pretty strong margin, listeners. That is quite a bit beyond our long-term average of 104%, which is already really robust. We haven't really ever had it above 100% in the long history that we've been crunching these numbers. And now here we are at 127 for this most recent cycle. So I think, spoiler alert, this cycle was a banger. If you want the full analysis, the full kit and caboodle of all this earnings data, make sure you tune in for the advisor's option tomorrow. I'll be joined by our buddy, Mr. Matt from ORATS. He and his team crunch all this data for us, after all. So we'll have some fun insights to kind of put a pin in earnings season as we keep on rolling a little bit of the old Odd Block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by theoptionsinsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
All right, everybody, let's get weird. Let's get wild. Some say we might even get a little bit whimsical on this show. Let's kick it off in a name, and everyone's obsessed with semis and all this crazy stuff. Maybe a little bit of EV love. Maybe some biotechs out there has got you fascinated. Name we don't talk about a lot. Allstate Insurance. Ticker symbol ALL. trading 168 and 3/4, up about $3.50 or a little over 2%. So a nice little day out there for good old Allstate. On the year, let's see what they've been up to. You know what? It's been a good year for Allstate as well, up over 50%, nearly 58% to the upside. It's been pretty much straight up, with really kicking into higher gear right after the Fed decision back around Halloween time, because they started the year right around 106, almost 107 back in March of a year ago, and they were trading about 111, 110 getting into early October. It wasn't until late October they started really kicking into high gear, and then they went from about 114 all the way up to where they are right now, 168. So these last 6 or so months have really been robust, to put it mildly, out there for Allstate. So apparently, insurance, who knew? The hot thing out there these days. Yeah, they blew away their earnings, looks like last time, on solid underwriting results. So there you go. Allstate feeling the love. And apparently someone feeling the love for Allstate today, because they came in this morning and said, what's the market on these April 180 calls? They got a dime at 45 cents. They said, we'll pay 40 cents. They said, sold to you, sir. And they bought 8,510 of these bad boys. By the way, when they picked up the stock, it was right around 168. So they've already had a nice move in the stock. And that at the time was a new all-time high, or a new 52-week high, I should say, for the stock. They've obviously rallied beyond that now, about $0.75. So new 52-week highs pretty much being set all the time today. Looks like the next announcement is not until May 1st, so not going to be within the scope of these options. But Mr. Rock Lobster, everyone's obsessed with insurance. Apparently we all slept on, or everyone's obsessed with tech, I should say. Apparently we all slept on insurance. Look at this, Allstate on the rampage, and somebody says there's more to come, sir. What do you think?
Well, Mark and I were noticing today in our ticker highlight show that financials are up, 50% since October? Pretty good kick. So apparently somebody thinks they could buy some calls in Allstate and make money, which is not what I would say a normal, a normal call buying stock. But, the stock is up. Let's see here. Did they pass the one-day sniff test on the April 180s? I think that's kind of tight for, let's see here. I feel like that's a little tight for a stock like this. But they're up a nickel. So, yeah, 10,000 of them traded. So whatever reason, maybe a trader or traders are looking for a nice run pre-earnings. That's the only thing I could think of there. But I mean, normally if the earnings were good, you would want to try to carry the trade through the earnings. So, this purchase is curious this early, on a pre-earnings trade, although it is up.
Yeah, they're passing your first sniff test that they are up size on this one already. So that's not bad. That's always nice when you buy some premium and it works out within a few minutes of buying it. Can't get angry about that. You're right. The time frame is a little weird. You might want to get a little bit of that earnings action in this, but hey, they don't seem to care and they don't seem to be too upset about it right now. Listeners, you like this? Have you been sleeping on the insurance sector like apparently all the rest of us have? Forget about EVs, forget about biotechs, forget about AI. Insurance is apparently where the action is. April 180s for 40 cents. Yay or nay, listeners. But you know what? We can't ignore these other hot sectors for too long. Like, dare I say it, perhaps some EVs you may have heard of. Like Lucid Group. You know the deal with this one. They've kind of been, I think to put it charitably, struggling of late. Trading $3 today, up about a quarter or nearly 9%. So managing to claw back some of their lost luster. The low came $2.50. That looks like that was back just a few weeks ago on March 15th. So, yeah, it's been a rough year for Lucid. They're off 63% or a little over $5 on the year. They were trading $8.14 a year ago. The high was nearly $9. That came, looks like, right around mid-April or so. And ever since then, it's been pretty much straight down. Kind of a rough year. We talked about this one before a few times on Oddities and others about what your thoughts are out there. Is the stock an option now that it's getting so cheap? Someone decided today, Mr. Rock Lobster, the answer is decidedly no. The stock is not an option because they're coming for the options. More precisely, they're coming for all the options today in Lucid. We first noticed a block of nearly 5,000, 4,997 of the May 3/2 going up for 35 cents, right near the offer. The stock was actually, unfortunately for them, a lot higher. The stock was 329. The stock is 303 now. So stock got up to 335 today. Looks like a lot of it driven by this call frenzy. They also picked up 4,854 of the April 3/2. Paid, now this is interesting, 19 cents for these. What was the market? They were 13 at 19. This one went up, 5 minutes before the other ones. Wow. Then it just went on from there, listeners. Just a whole bunch of paper out there. A total of 28,000 of the March 3/2 have traded today. All of that pretty much opening. And 16,000 of the March 3s, again, also opening. 14,000 of the March 4s, and 11,000 of the April expiring on the, by the way, I should point out the other Aprils I just mentioned. Those are expiring on the 5th. So those are not even monthly Aprils. Getting those for 19 cents. So Mr. Rock Lobster, they are all over the place in the next couple of weeks to month and change in terms of expirations, in terms of months, in terms of strikes. Seems like the only unifying factor amongst them is they want it all. They want to buy it all, sir. So I guess they want all the deltas and all the gamma in Lucid. What do you think?
I mean, can you really think? I obviously it could be a squeeze, and there could be some mechanical stuff. But would you really buy any listed EV car maker at this point? I can't think of a reason. I mean, even the Chinese, like what's that one, NIO, right? That's supposedly isn't that the biggest EV maker in China? And that stock can't get off the floor. I don't know why you would want to own any EV company at all. I mean, Tesla is one of the few companies that makes money selling EV cars. Everybody else, it's like pushing a rock up a hill. So I can see how some people think that they're going to get this little pop, and they're buying a bunch of calls in Lucid for ultra short duration. The May, at least there's a little duration. And again, anything can pop instantaneously in here on news, a squeeze, or whatever. So I get that part, but I just have a hard time. I have a hard time seeing that these calls will actually, pay anything. But I could be wrong.
Especially as they apparently squeezed it earlier this morning up to about 335, and then it's all fallen out of bed already. So these calls are all already failing your first test, Mr. Rock Lobster.
A tale of sadness and
those
woe.
April 5th 3/2 are already probably toast. So yeah, those are kind of rough. You like these, listeners? You like buying options in a roughly $3 stock, I should say, to begin with, or are you down for the Viceroy kind of frame of mind that you don't like playing in those kind of names? Or would you rather sell these? I don't know. Intriguing stuff. Hit us up. Let us know. Because somebody was up to a whole mess of no good out here in Lucid in all the expirations over the next couple of weeks, really. The 28th, so expiring this week. That's all the Marches were. And then also throwing in a little bit of April that expires next week. So they need Lucid to go on a tear. Either that or they're short a boatload of it and they're terrified of it going on a tear in the next few days to a week. Either way, weirdly short duration paper here in Lucid. So may be worth paying attention to it over the next few sessions as we go out to another name that is a newcomer. We touched on all the hot things. I was joking before about biotechs and EVs, but that's what we find ourselves in today. Just did EVs. Now we're heading to the realm of biotechs, in particular, Corcept Therapeutics Incorporated, ticker symbol CORT. That sounds disturbingly like the cordyceps that is the the agent that sets off everything in that Last of Us universe. So kind of a dubious name. Kind of a spooky name out there. But Corcept Therapeutics, this is a pharma trading $24.50, kind of unched on the day today. On the year, let's see. What have they been up to on the year? A year ago, they were trading 21.64. So they're up almost $3 over that span, 290. They shot up in between to a high of about 34 and a quarter. Seems like that was in September of last year. Then they fell off to about $24 again. So they fell off $10 by November. Then they rallied again up to about $33 in December before falling off again to $21 and change in February. Looks like that was actually their low for the year. It got to 2087. So they've had, as a biotech is wont to do, a lot of ups and downs, trending towards the middle of that range right now, listeners. And what do we find out here? It's like a funky one, Mr. Rock Lobster. Went up all kind of out of sequence and late, but all the exact same size and close enough in time that it seems like one of those looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck. It might be a duck. We first noticed 3,000 of the May 29 calls going up for $2.45 above the offer. They were offered at $2.35. They went up $2.45. Of course, they went up marked as late, so that's your first clue that something's afoot here, listeners. The stock was trading $24.34, so 20 cents below where it is right now. Then we also noticed as we went digging, about 20 minutes earlier, we saw the May 22.15 put spread going up for what looks like $2.35. $3 on the 22 puts, 65 cents on the 15 puts. Seems like buying the 22 puts, selling the 15 puts 3,000 times, so the exact same size there as well, which is also your next clue that it's probably related paper. The 22 puts were 265 at 310, went up for about $3. So again, with some of these types of trades that are negotiated, go up a little bit late. You can sometimes take the execution with a bit of grain of salt. There's a lot of wiggle room when you have three legs, three moving parts to the spread in terms of how you price it up, which is also probably why the pricing on these calls is a little bit funky. Mr. Rock Lobster, if past his prologue, if they're buying the put spread, they're probably going to be selling the calls to finance that. And you know what? The way it lines up, 245 versus 235, it lines up almost exactly. So even though these went up a weird time, I'm going to guess that's probably what they're doing. I don't think they went out and spent the exact same amount as the put spread on the calls. But then again, I've seen weirder things, Mr. Rock Lobster. An unmarked put spread versus calls. They thought they could get away with it, but they didn't count on the Eye of Sauron, Mr. Rock Lobster, sniffing them out. What do you think they were up to out here in your new favorite name, Corcept Therapeutics, Inc.?
Well, I mean, this is biotech. It does have the ability to run to the 30s. So I'm sure they've got some kind of FDA thing happening. It actually has revenue. Kind of surprised. Actually is a company with real, it's got net income. I was pretty surprised by this. I have to say, I don't know. I think this could be more like maybe some strangle action. I mean, I know the price is almost exactly perfect for a collar, right? But I think that and it's again good price for the collar. They're selling the 29s or buying the 22 put, as kind of a fade. I'm looking at this a little more like maybe they're buying the strangle and trying to bet on a funky earnings report.
That would certainly be some funk. They're spending a lot for that.
It would be a huge move, obviously. But
you need this thing to rock. They're spending $5 on this bad boy.
Yeah.
You need this thing. That's why I charitably assume the other way. But you know what? We've seen weirder things. People do tend to buy paper, usually to the upside in biotech. So, I mean, it's a funky price, but it's a weird execution on all of this. And it didn't go up marked as spread. We're kind of just reading between the lines there. But yeah, listeners, what do you think? How do you like that better? Do you like doing that as a $5 strangle? That's a lot. Or do you like doing it as almost effectively a zero cost collar at this point, stopping yourself out at $22 for the most part and giving up the upside beyond $29? I don't know. I mean, biotechs are
interesting. Although in your favor, there is a little bit of a markdown here on the vol, but May volatility is 104%. So whatever's going on there, is a fairly big thing from at least the option pricing right now.
Well, it certainly makes for an interesting segment if they decided to pay $5 on this thing.
Yeah, because it would be, I mean, you're definitely looking for some kind of massive
explosive doesn't even cover it then.
The likely idea would be the collar, and it's a well priced collar, I think, overall, even money for that, and you're taking out of there. So that would be the collar is the sensible approach.
When you're talking biotechs, though, they are really sensible. As we keep on rolling, you know who else is really sensible? It's Uncle Mike. So let's get to him now. A little bit of the old strategy block.
It's time to dispense options, wit, wisdom, and education. It's time for the strategy block.
Yes, when I think of Uncle Mike, I think of a couple of the things. 80s wrestling, Permabull, and of course, rarely sensible. Mr. Uncle Mike, sir. What is your response to that? Do you take umbrage like Mama Lobster certainly will on your behalf? And then B, what's catching your eye in the old strategy block today?
I take no umbrage. I'm kind of a sensible guy. I try and be sensible of others' needs. That's how I try and be with things. So I take no umbrage. Unless you're trying to screw me over in the points in the trivia game, but then that's a whole other story. But I want to talk today about a strategy that is arguably the most tax inefficient strategy known to man. That is a covered call and a basket of stocks in a covered call. From the standpoint of taxation, you could argue it is very inefficient from a tax standpoint. And when I talk to my clients about if we ever do it outside of an IRA, which I'll talk about that part in a second, I always tell them there's going to be some taxes on here that you may not like. Now, how can a covered call be tax inefficient? Well, number one, let's say that the stock stays the same and you sell calls throughout the year on it, and you profit on the calls all year. Well, yeah, you're ahead, which is a good thing. But you will be taxed at a short-term capital gains rate because of the way that the monthly covered calls are taxed. So you will have to take that on. Now, that another way with which a covered call strategy can be tax inefficient is, let's say that the stock goes down all year. But overall, you end up breaking even on the overall trade because the calls that you sold make up for the depreciation of the value of the stock. Well, and let's just say that you break even on it, but let's just say you have a slight loss on it. You're still going to pay taxes even though you lost because you never sold the stock, and you are paying taxes on those calls with which you are profiting on throughout the year. Now, let's take this to another level. Let's say that the stock goes down and you've sold enough call options to break even on it, let's say. And let's say the stock goes down again, and then you sell a call on it, stock goes higher, and then you get called away. Well, what's going to happen is that you can take a loss on the stock, which will oftentimes mitigate the gains on the calls you've made. But here's the problem. Let's say, oh, okay, I got called away. I'm going to sell that covered call again next week. I'm going to buy the stock again. And by doing that, what you are then implementing is a wash sale. And so when you're selling calls on the way down, nothing wrong with that. I do it all the time. Understand that if you do get called away and the stock's at a loss and you buy that stock again, you're not going to be able to claim that loss. Now, that might be okay, depending on what your situation is overall, and it might be worth it if you like the stock enough. But understand that the wash sale rule is real. And it typically happens to me a few times a year with my clients. But understand that it's going to happen at some point, unless you're very mindful of it and you find a replacement stock for 30 days, or you just start done trading the stock for forever or whatever. So long as you wait 30 days, you're going to be fine to get back into it. But if you're continuing to try and get back into the stock and sell calls against it, you're going to get hit with a wash sale, and that will be on your 1099-B. Now, what I want to emphasize here is what's the best way to avoid all that mess? Do all this in an IRA. You can get in, you can get out, and you will not be taxed on anything in an IRA until you take a distribution from the IRA. And if you take a distribution from a Roth, you'll never be taxed on it. So what I want to emphasize for today for the strategy is not to dissuade you from selling covered calls outside the IRA. I mean, I do it with clients all the time, but just understand that the tax efficiency that goes along with it, you need to be mindful of in your overall financial plan. And that is the strategy for today.
All right. The most tax inefficient strategy of all time. I'll leave it up to you to decide, listeners. Speaking of you folks deciding, let's get to a little bit of that now as we go around the block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, I teased some of our questions of the week from this last week, and indeed today. Last week, we asked you folks, what is your primary reason for trading options, income, premium harvesting, protection or hedging, speculation or other? 54.2%. So it came down. It was over 65% when we started. Came down to about 54.2% going the income, premium harvesting route. 39.6% saying they want a little bit of speculation in their lives, 6.3% for protection and hedging, and 0%, a whopping 0% for other. This week, we actually have a twofer, as I mentioned. A second one hitting the tape as we're recording here right now, listeners. Our official question of the week is, as Q1 draws to a close, which market segment are you the most, quote, excited? Excited can mean whatever you want. Usually it means opportunity for upside, but maybe you're just really interested in what's going to happen out here. Either way, we used excited for a reason. Which one are you most excited about for the rest of the year? Gave you three choices and the infamous other: equities, crypto, volatility, and other. And right now, I could get it for us here. There we go. Right now, listeners, looks like you folks are choosing vol. 40% of you going the vol route, 30% for crypto, only 20% for equities. Interesting. 10% for other. That includes our buddy, Mr. Age Del Aquarius, says he voted other because I'm watching interest rates first and foremost. Yeah, we expected that. You're a big rates guy. We know it. So there. We didn't put rates on purpose because only three choices. At the end of the day, we put rates a few times and no one really chose it, probably except for you. So we made it the infamous other, then that could be whatever the heck you want it to be. So right now, that's how it's breaking down. Of course, that just went live, listeners. Speaking of things that just went live, just a few minutes ago, our super producer diving in with the old proverbial gun to your head question. Apple, Tesla, both hanging out close to 170 right now, which raises the question, gun to your head, which one are you going to buy? And it has been neck and neck the entire time. Again, just went live a few minutes ago. It is still exactly 50% each. You folks cannot decide whether you want Apple or Tesla in your back pocket. So get over there at options, make your voice heard. As we go around the horn, see what everyone's keeping an eye on. Let's start with the Rock Lobster. Mr. Rock Lobster, first off, Apple or Tesla right now, gun to your head, which way you going? B, which market segment are you most excited for the rest of the year? Equities, crypto, volatility, or other? And then C, what are you keeping an eye on until the Thursday show?
I have to say, I'm going with Tesla because I'm going to stick with the innovation, which is hard for me to say, but if I'm going to choose one of the two, that's where I'm going.
You're just a diehard EV guy. You want the one that's still doing EV. That's what you want.
As far as, volatility is a pretty big part of my option trading. So for me, I'm going volatility. Most excited about. I go volatility number one. Equities, I think equities will do okay this year with the interest rate environment stable. So, but I think there could be a little bit of action in the volatility space. So that's what I'll stay there.
And what are you keeping an eye on till the Thursday show with the Flowmaster, sir?
Well, hopefully the power will come back on in Maine, which will be nice, at least in coastal Maine. That's the first thing. Waiting till the Flowmaster show. I'm just, it's Good Friday is Friday. We don't have any shows on Friday. And to see if we could just stay at these all-time highs. And if the little break from the highs is going to continue. Right now, there seems like no guts to sell stocks. no interest in selling stocks, and every new level we get, we just stay up there and go find a new one. So that's the only thing I can look for, is just the high and continual rally for equities.
Mr. Uncle Mike, same question for you. Equities, crypto, vol, or other for your segment that excites you the most right now. Also, Tesla or Apple, gun to your head, which way you going? And B, or I should say C, what are you keeping an eye on until the Thursday show?
Well, I'll go with Apple. I mean, with all the times on the show that I've talked up Apple, even though I do like Tesla too, but I mean, it's like, how can you not go with Apple? The same argument that I've had on this show for over 1,000 episodes. The reason that I like Apple, it's Apple. But I do like Tesla as well. In terms of what excites me, I mean, of course, it's equities. I mean, what's more exciting than a market that has made the returns with which it has, that with over 100-year track record, for crying out loud? Equities, no doubt about it. In terms of what I'm watching for the following week, or for the rest of the week until our Thursday show, well, I think what we need to keep an eye on right now, of course, is how our bonds really are not having too much of a reaction to the Fed last week. At least for today, they're not. And so wanting to see what happens with them, if they do have some type of a reaction to it, of bonds actually showing their hand of what the market's going to be. But also wanting to just keep an eye on silver. It's had this little sneaky rally over the course of the last few weeks, and see if we might get a little bit of a breakout. Those are the things I'm watching.
Uncle Mike, all in on Apple after slamming it for years, saying the innovation index is not there. Which way are you going, listeners? It just ticked. Looks like Uncle Mike may be swaying some of you. 57.1% saying Apple right now. 42.9% saying Tesla. Obviously, it's a hot one. Get over there, add options, make your voice heard. As we go around the horn one final time, see what everybody has in store that may interest you. Let's start with the Rock Lobster. Mr. Rock Lobster, while you're waiting for power to come back on, where should folks go if they want more pick goodness?
Yes, optionpit.com, 888-TRADE-01. If you heard the show, you get 10% off anything at Option Pit. But you got to mention the show. That's what they get.
You also have to mention the lack of power for the Rock Lobster. You get bonus money off then.
Exactly, bonus, an extra 1%.
And also make sure you say nice things about him, or Mama Lobster will be coming to knock on your door. Your knock on your door as well. Optionpit.com. The place to. Let's hope we all appeased Mama Lobster today. And I don't know, is Mama TOSAW, is she as vengeful as Mama Lobster? Probably not, because she's not an Italian mama. They're very protective of their boys. But Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, where should folks go if they want more Uncle Mike goodness?
I got a German mama, so nonetheless, she would be very protective if she felt her boy was in danger, no doubt about that. But if you are looking for more information on what we do here at St. Charles Wealth Management, check out my website, stcharleswealth.com. Follow me on Twitter at Mike TOSAW, TOSAW.
There you go. St. Charles Wealth is the place to go. We got to get on out of here. Back again in a little bit to hold court on all things crypto with the Crypto Rundown. Then back with our usual array of content until, as Mr. Rock Lobster alluded to, our final broadcast day of the week, which is Thursday, because we're all off for Good Friday. Not a monster, making people come in on Good Friday, listeners. So we'll be off on Fridays. That means no vol views, which I forgot to mention on the show last week. So we did pick for this coming week, so we'll have to do something with that. Don't worry, we'll figure something out. And then, of course, back again on Thursday, another episode of The Option Block. Stay safe out there, everybody.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com.